Jordan said again, I think I'm going to take my own life. And they said, good, do that fast or we'll make you do it.
The anxiety is still there. It's like, why did I fall for this? What happens if this happens again?
This thing you're doing is not only going to make someone lose money, but it's also potentially going to lead to loss of life.
These individuals are particularly callous, they're particularly manipulative, and it's really making young people, young adults feel that they have no choice in what they're being asked to do.
So from what you've explained, it sounds like you've been affected by a really common type of online crime called sextortion. Have you sort of read or heard anything about it at all?
Sextortion, where people are tricked online into sending intimate pictures of themselves to scammers, who then demand money and threaten to share the images with friends or family of the victim. With most cases linked to West African cybercriminals called Yahoo Boys, it's a crime that plays on shame, often with profound impacts on its victims. The National Crime Agency says global cases have more than doubled in the last year, and 91% of victims in the UK are male. The large majority of cases go unreported.
We believe that the reports that we're getting are only the tip of the iceberg. Child sexual abuse more broadly is underreported, and we deem this to be the same.
Who is being targeted? How are the profiles so convincing? And who are you really talking to online?
Next up, Jordan May and Kyla Palmer.
Jordan was a really great kid, and I know that parents, that's what they say, but Jordan really was a great kid.
And for the king, Jordan DeMay.
He and I spent so much time together and had this bond where we shared everything. He loved music, riding around, being at the beach, being with his friends. You know, his friends have told me he was such a bright light and brought that to the group and had a way of bringing people in together. You know, obviously he played basketball and football, and he was very determined. He was super hardworking and fun-loving. Jordan was he was full of life.
Probably sports, obviously, it's one. And then all the people that I've met and got close with throughout the years.
Jordan was contacted by a direct message on Instagram by someone who was pretending to be a female. They had some conversation back and forth, like, hi, how are you? We have a friend in common, just talking about things that, teenagers do. And then this alleged female asked Jordan for a photo and said, I'll send one of myself. So the photos were exchanged. And in that moment, the person behind that account started asking Jordan for money. And it was not a female. It was 4 males in Nigeria. They wanted $1,000 from Jordan. Jordan didn't have $1,000. He had $300 and he paid that to them. But they wouldn't stop, and they kept tormenting him, wanting more money. Finally, Jordan got to the point and he said, why are you doing this to me? Please stop. And I feel like I want to take my own life. And they said, we're going to watch you die a miserable death. And Jordan said again, I think I'm going to take my own life. And they said, good, do that fast or we'll make you do it. And Jordan did. He took his own life from this.
Jordan's death is one of at least 27 suicides of boys in the US in the last few years, and the deaths of at least 3 British teenagers, including Dinalda Alwis and Murray Dowie, all affected by sextortion scams. Agencies across the UK, US and Australia have all confirmed a sharp rise in cases with teenage boys and young men, with the FBI recording a 10-fold increase in the number of cases since 2021. So who are the people behind Jordan's death? With the perpetrators often operating out of West Africa, it can be very tricky to track down the people behind the fake profiles, but in Jordan's case, they were found. Samuel and Samson Agoshi, both in their early 20s, were tracked down by US authorities in Lagos, Nigeria, and extradited to America. This is the first case of its kind, and the men were both given 17-year prison terms to be served in the US. A third man linked to Jordan's death and other cases is fighting extradition.
It sends a message. It sends a message to every criminal or would-be criminal around the world that wherever they are, we'll chase them down and we will find them to hold them accountable.
There's so much involved with Jordan's case where it's setting this precedent that if you commit this crime, you can be found and brought here. You're not just going to stay in your country. So I think it sends a strong message, we can do this.
And it's not just the US that's threatening extradition. The National Crime Agency is also warning sextortion gangs that they could be brought to the UK to be prosecuted.
As law enforcement, we will always seek ways to ensure that victims have the justice that they need. We are working internationally with partners, and we have seen best practice in this space. So we will be looking to hold those to account who victimise young people in our country and hold them to justice, either here in the UK or within their own country.
The Agoshi brothers' defence attorney said that their crimes were fuelled by drug abuse and the sextortion scam culture in Nigeria. Experts think that this hotspot for this type of cybercrime is due to a young and tech-savvy population. And it's not the first time.
If you look or cast your mind back to when this started, it started out as emails, being sent of a Nigerian prince, and all of that. And then later, some widow who's looking to, hide proceeds of his late dictator.
Those scams spread through the Yahoo email service, which is where the name comes from for the current portion of the population that do cybercrime to earn a living. A report from the Network Contagion Research Institute has said that virtually all sextortion targeting minors is directly linked to a distributed West African cybercriminal group called the Yahoo Boys. Stacks of cash, flashy clothes, expensive jewellery and booze. The Yahoo Boys subculture has become part of the Nigerian internet landscape, boasting their lavish lifestyles.
We have a culture currently now, unfortunately, where people like to flaunt wealth, people like, to live big, people like to be the big boys, and that's also not unconnected with the internet, the fact that you have access to a lot of lavish lifestyles out there. Then suddenly everybody wants to be rich, everybody wants to drive a Rolls Royce without working for it. So people see role models, look at some of these people who you can't account for their wealth, but yet they are making the waves, they are making it to the headlines. We saw one of them make it to the cover of Forbes magazine. So there is the cultural angle, but then there's also the socioeconomic angle, the fact that the jobs are not there, there's a lot of poverty, and so these people, unfortunately, they are taken to the wrong thing to try and bridge that gap.
In apartments or hotel rooms turned incubators called hustle kingdoms, groups of young people, some as young as 13, stay and learn fraud basics.
It's very possible that when you have those clusters, there will be handshakes with drugs and cultism and even violent crimes, protecting themselves.
These scammers operate across different social media platforms and dating apps, and they share scripts and information on how to successfully scam their targets. We obtained over 250 files and 500 images from Yahoo Boys in Nigeria, ranging from scripts and information through to stolen IDs and photos of men and women.
How to be a good Yahoo Boy. This document lays out the basics of all types of romance fraud: VPNs, a good laptop, a grammar plugin. Wannabe Yahoo Boys can buy and sell international numbers, they trade images of beautiful women they pretend to be, sick grandmas for sub-stories, Facebook groups of people they think are likely to fall for a romance scam. They share AI tips on how to create fake voices and fake videos, how to cash out with gift cards so money can't be traced, where the money can go. They brag about how much they've made. And there, among the documents detailing every scam you could think of, are blackmail scripts. The kind of scripts that would have been used on Jake.
You're on some crappy dating sites. As a guy, you don't normally get that many likes on these sites, so when someone messages you reply. And it seemed very genuine at first, and then they ask, oh, can I speak to you on another platform? No, I don't want to speak to you on any of that stuff, because I felt there was something a bit off there. So I said, okay, we can speak on messages. The conversation continues, and then it goes very quickly. It went very sexual in nature, which felt very off. So then they asked for a picture of me holding 2 fingers up, for example, which I did, and then they also sent one back, which makes you feel like, oh, this is actually a genuinely real person here. Then after that, they say, do you want to send a dick pic? I didn't want to do that, but I was, you're interested to see what will happen anyway. So I found one online and I sent that. Immediately after that, they compile a picture of like the dating site profile, the picture of my face holding 2 fingers, my phone number, and all of that into one image. And they just sent that And then it's basically a continued spam saying, oh, I've now got this, I'm going to share it on LinkedIn, your Instagram, to all of my followers, and saying if I don't pay them £500, then they're going to leak it, essentially. And it's just a continuous spam of, I'm going to ruin your life, you're going to regret this, you won't be able to work. Like, it caused a lot of anxiety in a very quick space, along with all the spam. It's like 20 minutes of this, and I'm trying to diffuse it, saying, I don't have that much money, I can give you this. And in the same time, I'm realizing, actually, they don't have access to my Instagram, they don't have access to my Facebook. All they've got is my phone number and the dating profile. But nevertheless, it still caused a lot of stress in that moment. But after realizing, actually, there's nothing they can really do here, I quickly relaxed. But even then, it's like 2 hours of just anxiety, and then continue to message me.
Thanks. In Exeter, we meet with the Revenge Porn Helpline, an organisation who helps adults dealing with intimate image-based abuse. I just want to kind of hear firsthand from the people who are almost on like the front lines of battling this, like just how much this has increased and how many people are calling up. It looks like this crime affects majority men, and that's quite rare for sexual crimes. I'm just mainly interested to hear about how you help someone who's kind of so distressed. Like, what can you even do? Where do you signpost? Like, how can you help them? As we arrived, a call had already come through from a victim of sextortion.
Hi, Revenge Porn Helpline, Emma speaking. So to reassure you, this is the most common thing that we're talking to people about on the helpline. So you really aren't alone in your experience at all.
The helpline's run by a small team who are taking calls from the minute they get in.
Sextortion is the most common thing that we're speaking to people about on the helpline, so it does take up about 30% of our cases, and about 93% of the people who are affected by sextortion are men. We've seen a huge rise, so cases have risen by 54% from 2022 to 2023, and it feels like they might be sort of rising again this year. So we're taking kind of about 30 calls a day from people who've been affected by this. It's obviously sort of hugely distressing for people. Our advice is to stop that communication and block and report, and not to send any money, because that is when the perpetrators stop. That is what they're after. The reality is it's a very normal thing to speak to people online in this way and kind of exchange intimate content with someone that you're chatting to online. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that, but to go on and threaten to share that content non-consensually, that is where the fault lies, and that's the only people who are doing anything wrong in this scenario are the criminals. I think they know exactly what to do to really terrify people. They sort of rely on making people feel really ashamed and really isolated as well, and like they can't reach out and speak to anybody.
So I have a bunch of nicknames. We have Dewey, we have Durag.
For Jordan, that's the feeling of shame that his mum Jen describes.
From the time of the first message being sent, which was around 10 o'clock at night, till the time that Jordan took his own life, around 4 a.m., it was less than 6 hours. I really wish I knew what was going through his head. I can imagine as his mom, like how much fear and anxiety he had going on. I think he was tired, scared. They were putting the pressure on him so hard that he didn't have a moment to think about, like, what should I do? And that was his only way out, and they were encouraging it.
We often see that people are more likely to meet a financial demand because they're given really little time for critical thinking. So young people, young adults, are not culpable for the abuse that's happened. They are a victim of crime, particularly in this case by really malice individuals who have no consideration for their life.
Nigerians are not all criminals. They're very enterprising people. I believe one key thing that is neglected is the awareness. The fact that some of these folks who get into this thing are not properly aware that what they're getting into is a crime. The fact that some of them are not aware that this can lead to somebody's death, like the case of all the young people that has taken their life, unfortunately.
Global cases of sextortion have risen so steeply in the last year that the National Crime Agency issued an unprecedented alert to different education settings across the UK to help people recognise if this is happening to them or someone they know.
So within this crime, we have seen a number of young people take their lives, so it's extremely devastating. This is why it's really important that we break through any form of embarrassment and any form of awkwardness. We need to turn this into a really everyday conversation. The more that we do that, we remove the power from these individuals. That's really what they are currently relying on. We need to make sure that people understand that they are a victim, that they're not responsible, and there's a whole safeguarding community around them.
A lot of the time people call us and they do really feel like they've done something wrong. I mean, we just really try and reassure people that they absolutely haven't, and they're deserving of support, and they're not alone in their experience. I think a lot of the time people feel like it's literally just them and that they're the only person in the world that's ever experienced this, but that's definitely not the case.
Really, if he would have come to me, I probably would have been like, are you serious? And be like, just walk away, it's fine. Nothing's going to come of this. And I probably would have been upset for a minute, like, I can't believe that you did that, but it would have been over with. In a week, it would have been gone. Even if the photos went out to everybody, nobody would have cared. This crime is really effective because of the sensitivity of it, the embarrassment factor. And that's why these people are getting money and kids are taking their lives, because they are so ashamed. Jordan wouldn't ever want to disappoint me or anybody else. And that's probably what he felt in that moment, when in reality, that would not have disappointed me at all in any bit. It's changed everything about my life. I lost the closest person to me. I lost the person that I spoke to every day. I will have this hole in me, feel this emptiness, this heaviness on me for the rest of my life. And now I've tried to share his story so that other people don't have to go through what I am. There are lots of resources, and your life is worth it.